what you can do might not be like living up to your potential almost. Like maybe you do more, but your belief holds you at what you can do.
Welcome to Money Therapy. My name is Brandan Chasteen, and I will be guiding you through a conversation along with my co-host, Bill Magill. Bill, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brandon? Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. The least that I could do.
The least that you can. It's true. That is the least that you do. Sweet.
Oh man.
All right. I'm gonna stretch your brain, Bill.
Oh geez. It already hurts.
Well, you need it stretched for sure. All right. So here's we kind of pre-showed this a little bit, but I don't know if I'm happy with the end result. So we'll see where this goes. See where this goes. This is actually going to be a lot more probably off the cuff than what we prepared for. All right. So I'm just going to throw this out there. I have a couple thoughts. First thought is, I would venture to say that most people that don't have what they want in life or are not getting out of life what they want, that might be a better way to say it. Most people that aren't getting out of life what they want or intend to get out of life are in that space, not because they're not working hard enough, but because they have the wrong beliefs.
Okay.
Right. I think, and tell me if you agree with this or not, but I believe that most people, probably like a 95, 99% of people work as hard as they can. Not as hard as they could, but as hard as they can.
Okay.
Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that?
Well, it's a pretty vague premise, so I will say that I agree for right now. So let's keep going. Let's expand and continue to stretch my brain.
So here's the thing, Bill. If it was easy enough just to work twice as hard to get what I want out of life, I think everybody would do it.
Okay.
All right. You're being a great co-host. I think.
Well, I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this. I mean,
I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're stuck, it's probably not because of your input. It's probably not because of your effort. It's probably because you have the wrong beliefs.
Okay.
You might even be, may I go as far as to say you might be believing in things that are outright lies.
It's possible.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the direction I want to go. Right. Okay. Here's the thing is when we start to challenge people's beliefs and like, if I have a client come in here, like, let's just talk about you, Bill. Like if I say, hey, Bill, like what you believe in this case is wrong. You are believing a lie. Where do we get our money beliefs from?
Well, typically it starts at the home, starts with your parents.
Right. So if we start there, I think people get money beliefs from their experiences in life. It starts in the home, like what you said, but they get it from people they love, people they trust, right? They get it from people they admire. They get it from all these things that are close. And like, if you have beliefs about money that you've picked up from people that you love and trust and believe that have your best interest, and I come in and say those beliefs are lies, how like, I mean, that could be a punch in the stomach, if nothing else, right? Saying that your mom and dad lied to you about money.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think as financial advisors, I feel that I'm constantly kind of navigating that because it's very easy, in that instance to feel almost attacked, because when we have beliefs, it's typically, like you said, we've learned it from somewhere, and then we've tried to build our lives off that belief in an effort to go in the right direction or what we think is the right direction. And then you have somebody, like a financial advisor that you're sitting down for the first time and they kind of come out of left field and say, hey, you're actually like super wrong about all of this. That's not only is that disorienting to the person, understandably, but it can also feel kind of like a personal attack. So,
Mhm.
it's definitely from again a financial advisor's view. It's how do I say this in a way to kind of soften the blow and to keep their mind open, right? Because if you're going to change beliefs, which is kind of where we're going, you got to keep an open mind. I mean, you can't close off.
And I think you got to go a step further and start just asking yourself, like, is my belief grounded in hope or in truth? Right? Like, is what I believe true, or is what I believe hopefully true? And I think as long as we can go through life, like this is the thing. If you can take away one thing from this episode, you could probably stop listening and we're 5 minutes in, 6 minutes in.
Hmm.
But if you could take away one thing, I would say like learning how to examine yourself and
Hmm.
ask the questions like, where is this coming from? Like this instinct, this feeling, this reaction, this whatever emotion is there. If you can start learning to say, where is this coming from, and is it coming from something that I've learned that may or may not be true, or is it coming from something that I know is true? I think you
Right.
will solve 90% of your problems. You'll change your beliefs. And here's why. The whole point we're talking, like the whole reason we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about today is, again, so many people are tired. I meet clients in my office all the time. They're like, Brandon, I'm exhausted. I'm working my butt off. I'm doing everything I possibly can the best way I know how. I haven't wasted money in 16 years. I haven't missed an opportunity. I've done everything, but I'm still not where I want to be.
Hmm.
We're like, I don't meet very many people that are just ultimate, like they're just huge pieces of lazy whatever, and they're not trying or doing it. And I don't meet very many people in my office that just like throw money to the wind and like just waste every dollar that they have. Most people are really doing the best that they can. But that's the quote that I told you that you said you're like, it's not that great of a quote, but I'm going to read it anyway.
Yeah.
Belief increases our ability to max out the potential of our capacity.
Yeah.
Right. So if my beliefs are what they are, and I'm trying everything I can, and I'm hitting a wall, what's wrong is not my effort. I could actually, if I can navigate and find the right belief structure for me, I
Hmm.
can probably reel all of that effort in, spend less effort, and have more success.
Yeah, where my mind immediately goes to this, you kind of mentioned trying to find ways to kind of challenge your own beliefs, to not fall into, when you get to a place where maybe you feel stuck or you're not getting the outputs that you think you should be getting, having that self analyzing process where you question your beliefs and question, your open mind. I go to, people around me. My wife is a fantastic judge of me, and sometimes I feel like she knows me better than I do,
Mhm.
and I can sometimes say, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking," and every once in a while, she will, she'll say, "Dude, you're way off. Like, this is a terrible idea. Like this is not for you. Like, maybe let's go over here." I had my mom recently and I was telling her and kind of venting, but just like, this is what I think and this is what's going on in my head. And, I felt stuck in this conversation. And my mom, who's a very, very kind and gentle person, um, on this phone call, just flat out just told me, well, you're wrong about that. And you need to change the way you're thinking because it's not true. And I love you, but you're absolutely wrong about that. Snap out of it. And hearing that from her was kind of a revelation. I mean, I don't think she realized that, but coming from a person as soft and gentle as she's always been and she's like the best person ever. Um, and that just kind of hit me in the face. So that's where my mind goes. Like, how can we rely on other people, like rely on ourselves to realize we're stuck? But then how do we get people out of there? Try and, try and find those people in your life that can snap you out of that sort of thing.
Yeah, um I think that what I find to be most true is that in order to have a path to kind of happiness, wealth, prosperity, all these things that we want,
Yeah.
it all starts with like really firm like identity. Like we have to be aware of who we are.
Yeah.
And we have to, like, again, we have to go through that vetting process because, when we talk about people telling us lies, like the places we go to formulate and build our beliefs, oftentimes sometimes I think we do it backwards. Sometimes I think we have beliefs that form our identity. And I think we
Hmm.
need to have identity that forms our beliefs. And
Sure.
that's probably a whole like course in a to go through and work through and talk about everything there. But I think
Yeah.
sometimes we allow circumstances, we allow beliefs, we allow all lies that we believe in, all these things
Hmm.
to shape our identity. Whereas if we start by saying, this is who I am,
Yeah.
then we can start building our beliefs in that are grounded more in truth. Um,
Hmm.
one quote that comes to mind, and I have no idea who said it, I read this somewhere. The idea was we do we believe things that are true, or do we are things we believe true, or do we believe things because they're true? I don't know. Do you get what the
This is
whole
the most brain stretching part of this whole episode, by the
I
way.
forget what the quote was
Just
now.
trying to figure out what
Uh,
in the world you're talking about.
the whole point is sometimes like are things true because we believe them, or do we believe them because they're true? That's the quote. Are things true because we believe them,
Yeah.
or are things true because we believe them, or do we believe things that are true? Man, that took a
Yeah.
minute to get to. I'm sorry for everyone listening to that word vomit, but
We got through
the
that
whole
together.
point is like even when you talking to your mother, she has your best interest at heart. She cares about you. But when she says like, "Hey, what you're thinking is wrong," how does she know that? And this could be circumstantial, like what maybe she was absolutely right in that circumstance, but in another
Sure.
that's like there could be other cases where your mom could come to you and say, "Hey, what you're thinking is absolutely wrong," and you'd be
Yeah.
like, "It is for you. It's okay for you to think that, but for me, this is not wrong." How do we know? How do we know when our beliefs are true
Yeah.
versus someone else what they're telling us is true? And I think that
Yeah.
boils down to identity in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think how we try and derive truth from life is all about like track record and our brains want to see evidence in everything. And so a thought that comes to mind is I listened to this podcast that has a very heavy bent towards physical fitness and taking care of yourself. And the people on there say, hey, like I've never seen somebody sustain, an exercise routine for the long term who absolutely like they go to the gym to like punish themselves.
Mm.
Because the people that are long term, athletes and all this thing, they go because they actually love themselves and they say, I'm worth feeling healthy and feeling good. And so I'm worth the time I spend in the gym to try and get healthy. And what that does, it starts with what you're talking about. It starts with the belief that my belief is I am worth it. I am worth this, right? And so then you start exercising because of that belief. Whether you believe you can lose 20 pounds or not doesn't really matter, right? I'm a person that takes care. My identity is a person that takes care of my body, and I try and be as healthy as I can, right? And then eventually the 20 pounds falls off. And so then your brain in my head goes, okay, I've seen a track record for 3 years of me working out, going on walks, doing some jogs, taking the dogs on a hike, and now I'm in shape and I feel good consistently. Well, that exercise is a good idea, right? And that becomes then you see other people who exercise has done really good things for them too. And so now you go, okay, this must be a truth. That's how in my opinion, you kind of build a truth. And I think that's why it's so uncomfortable when somebody challenges that and says, hey, you could be wrong about this, It's like, well, hey, dude, I just spent 10 years exercising and, and this has been a really good thing in my life. And now you're
Yeah.
telling me this doesn't work at all, and obviously everybody knows exercise is good for you, right? But maybe it's not, So I think it's the process of challenging your own beliefs and your own, what you think is absolutely true. It's so uncomfortable to find out that it's not true. It's like the Mark Twain quote. It's not what you don't know that gets you hurt. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so.
Yeah, I'm actually, one of the kind of the introduction into the book that I'm writing shares a story of kind of a life journey for me of having to deal with really hard things in the military, right?
Yeah.
Like, and when you try to heal from these circumstances, these situations you were put into and had to make really tough decisions or be exposed to really hard things, you
Yeah.
try to connect the dots. And one thing that was kind of a um, always a way for me to make myself whole again, or at least get as close back to that as possible,
Hmm.
was this truth that what we were doing was bigger than me,
Hmm.
and it was for a greater good, right?
Sure.
And a lot of in the long, there's a lot behind for the greater good, but one of the things that I always knew, beyond just protecting the guy to my right and left and serving the men and women that said they were going to serve alongside me,
Yeah.
was just this idea of protecting these women, these families, children in Afghanistan, and keeping them from this like pretty evil group, which so life, like 15 years plus of like me being over and exposed to combat and having to put this together and be like, you know what, like that sacrifice, that loss, that hard thing, that hard decision, those things that are keeping me up, it's all worth it because we're making families safer in Afghanistan. And
Yeah.
then fast forward to where we basically just handed Afghanistan the keys, or sorry, the Taliban the keys to Afghanistan. That
Hmm.
was so disheartening. But what it also did, like, it was hard to see us lose Afghanistan as a person that's fought over there so many times.
Yeah.
But what was really hard, and what I don't think people that like a lot like what was really hard about it was all those things that I've done to repair myself was all
Yeah.
tied to a truth that we're doing something good. Now that truth didn't exist. So now all those like band-aids that I placed over old wounds that, patched the hole, like it did the job. Now that truth
Yeah.
that it rested on was gone. So
Yeah.
not only did I have to like make amends with the idea that Afghanistan isn't going to have the desired outcome that we all thought it would, but
Yeah.
now all those other things that were tied to the truth of that, it wasn't. So I lost my truth. I will say this, like, if you're in a place where you're going to start experiencing, like, you want to start challenging your beliefs, you want to start challenging your, like, the truths versus the beliefs, or what beliefs are true. If you want to start doing that, you do have to really form a strong sense of identity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could get really lost in that. So one of the things that you said, Bill, just a minute ago, is you said, you talked about the word, like, you saying like I am, right? And I'm not
Hmm.
going to get super religious here, but in the Bible, God says I am that I am. I think that's one of the most powerful phrases, and that if we are his creation in his image, like him saying I am that I am, and when we say I am, like,
Hmm.
there's a lot of identity in those words. And I think just the proactive talk informing identity, when we say
Hmm.
things like, when I say Brandon, like when I am this person, I will do these things. I do these things. When we start speaking actively about who we are,
Hmm.
that's how we can really solidify our identity. Instead of saying like, yeah, I'm going to try to go to the gym, that's not identity. When I
Hmm.
say I go to the gym, that's identity, right?
Yeah.
When we say like I am, like I'm working on happiness,
Yeah.
versus saying I am happy. Those are two completely different things. So I think, you know, the goal here is challenging our beliefs, but I really think that you hit on something there with that word I am. Like, we have to have a strong identity about who we are. So that way, again, when we start building the bricks of belief around who we are for us to be sheltered inside those beliefs,
Yeah.
um, we're putting it together the right way.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about a couple of different things in this episode. We started off talking about, what you believe, uh, what you can do might not be like living up to your potential almost. Like maybe you do more, but your belief holds you at what you can do. And then I think about what you just said, and you said, we have to ground our beliefs in something and form our own beliefs. And I kind of think of like the young, like 18 to 20-year-old Bill, where I had, no idea, for a lot of beliefs in my life. I mean, I from my parents, I feel like I had a great foundation. Like I knew right from wrong. And,
Sure.
but I've only just recently at 31 years old have really like felt comfortable with some of my beliefs and if they're different from other people. And I feel like when you're young there's a lot of pressure to kind of conform with one group, with some groups, and
Mhm.
because we're all kind of trying to figure this thing out together. And so I'm just thinking of that young person out there, and I want to give that young person a little bit of advice, and I want you to as well. But if you're in a spot, like take a stand on something, and make sure, and you'll know it's a good thing for the most part, and take a stand on something. And if you're wrong, admit that you're wrong. Keep an open mind in that moment, because you're deciding in that moment that I am a person that grows from my
Mhm.
mistakes, and be open to making those mistakes in that way. And we talked about this a little bit last week, when we were talking about kids and learning, and how kids learn and when we should start teaching kids and things. Um, I would just say start somewhere. Take a stand on something, whether it's personal finance or it's your religion or it's, uh, you know, serving in the military and your patriotism for our country. Like take a stand somewhere and try and ground in there, and still work on being open minded at the same time. And I think that's where we begin to see balance.
Yeah, I
What do
think
you think about that?
no, I think that's great advice. You know, my identity is wholly tied to my faith. Um, and the unique thing is, I think when you position yourself the right way, the way that I think we're designed to be positioned, you're exactly right. Like it is a like my position is that I know who I am, but I
Yeah.
don't know everything.
Hmm.
And I definitely don't come into conflict with the idea of like anger and segregation. I come into any kind of conflict from a place of love and curiosity, right?
Hmm.
So, and that is nice to be able to walk in there because that's who I am. I am curious,
Yeah.
right? And I am humble. And guess what?
Hmm.
I have been and I will be wrong. So
Hmm.
knowing that I am a person that grows, um, it's super easy to admit, like, yeah, I was wrong about that. I totally was wrong.
Yeah.
Missed that mark, learned a lot, and now look who I am now because I'm better. I'm more grown, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it is important to have that identity, then start challenging beliefs because again, without the right beliefs to the point that you just made and the point of the quote that I read is that if our beliefs are self-limiting beliefs, if our beliefs put a capacity at the effort that we're currently giving, we're not hitting our potential, right? So if I feel
Hmm.
like I'm exhausted and working as hard as I can and I just can't have what I want,
Hmm.
right? I can't live life the way that I want. It doesn't feel as good as I think it should feel. It's because
Hmm.
my beliefs, I'm working as hard as I can because my beliefs are here. Right. But if I adjust my beliefs higher, if I change my beliefs, Now, all of a sudden, the output that I have, the effort that I'm giving is nowhere near the capacity I have. And that the distance between like the effort I give and my ultimate capacity, that's called potential,
Mhm.
right? But a lot of times our beliefs that limits our potential, right?
Mhm.
Our beliefs can limit our potential. And if our beliefs are limiting our potential, it doesn't matter how much harder I'm willing to work, I'm going to hit the same wall. It's only when I start like saying, "Hey, this might something about my belief structure is not working. I have to change that." So I start
Mhm.
looking and forming new beliefs. Now all of a
Mhm.
sudden, my capacity starts to go higher, and now I
Mhm.
realize, "Hey, I have more space in my life to give more effort in different ways." And now all of a sudden, my potential is unlimited. There's a great book. Have you read 10x is easier than 2x?
I have not.
You should read it. Um, it's a phenomenal book, but the whole it's I mean everything everything that I'm talking about comes from a place of like again faith-based standpoint. I can point to biblical scriptures to provide evidence of what I'm saying is true. But in this book, 10x is easier 2x. It's more of a different approach. But what they're basically saying, Bill, is like, let's say you earn $150,000 last year.
Yeah.
Okay. If I told you that I want you to earn $300,000 next year, what's like the first thing that comes to your mind? Like I made 150K last year. I need to make $300,000 this year. The first
Yeah.
thing that will pop in most people's minds is, well, that means I probably have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
simple math,
That's
right?
what hit my mind is like, oh
Yeah.
my
Like
gosh, how can I
I need,
possibly work double what I just
yeah,
did?
I have to work twice as hard. So many people that's almost, especially if you're like an hourly employee, you're like, well, I got to work twice as many hours. Right.
Right.
What if I said, Bill, you made 150K last year. Next year, you need to earn 1.5 million. Now, all of a sudden, like honestly, if you check your gut, if you're listening to this, you don't
Mhm.
like the thought of doubling your work output didn't even
Mhm.
come to mind because
Yeah.
there's no way that you can do the same thing in 10x
Mhm.
your income.
Yeah.
Right. But here's how this works. What's easier? Is it easier? And go with me here because it's not always. I'm not trying to imply this is easy. What I'm
Right.
saying is it easier to work like take all the work you did last year? Would it be easier for you to work twice as hard for an
Mhm.
entire year? Or would it be easier for you to invent a new way, innovate some new path to making $1 million next year?
Hmm. It's a tough debate.
Right. Well, there's a lot of evidence in that 10x is easier than 2x. If you haven't read it, highly encourage it. Um,
I
there's
like that
also,
idea though. I like the idea like you have to expand we have to stretch Bill's mind here, right? We got to stretch minds. I mean, you got
you
to
have to start thinking different.
thinking differently is typically a good thing, and it helps you, keep that open mind, and that's why people, um, you've probably heard, I want to be the dumbest person in the room,
Well,
and
and
that means everybody's smarter than me, and so I can grow in that. I can open my brain. I can, and then if I get to the point where I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room, right? I
right.
got to go to a different room. So,
The in the book, they point out a couple obvious like 10x moments, right? You got your like Bill Gates and like all these mass creators that went from making $40,000 a year to
hmm
making $40 million a year because they had an
hmm
idea. they
yeah,
could they could not have went from $40,000 to $80,000 just by working twice as hard.
hmm
They couldn't have done it,
yeah,
but somehow they went from $40,000 of income to $40 million of income because they had an idea.
yeah.
Right. What we have again, what they do, they challenge their beliefs on something. Hey,
hmm
is this like computer? Like, I actually believe we could have a computer in every single home in America. I
Yeah.
believe that's boom. Belief change. Now Bill Gates is doing Bill Gates things.
He like
Right.
owns the world.
He owns the world
Yeah.
or a lot,
He
at least a
owns
lot
the
of farmland. Um,
yeah.
same thing with like Zuckerberg, right? You have this like
Yeah.
dude that's like, you know what? I actually think we could create like a path to where everybody could be super, super connected.
Hmm.
Like, regardless of your distance, you could be super connected. Boom,
Yeah.
new idea. He went from making what he was making to owning a bunch of farmland, right? And doing
I
jujitsu
think
against
I think I know how
farmers.
we can like shortcut this whole process. Just start buying farmland, right?
Maybe that's the belief.
Yeah, that's we're all missing it. But no, let me jump in here. So my favorite book, I guess it's become, is The Subtle Art of Not Giving
Yeah.
Enough. But his name, the author is Mark Manson, and he has a podcast, of course, and I've listened to it. And one of the things that he titled this video, "How to Get Ahead of 99% of People Out There." Right. And how many videos out there are titled that? Like almost all of them. Right.
That's
But
what this one's gonna be titled.
is it? Yeah.
No, no.
There you go. Yeah, we should do that. But he discusses like exactly what you're saying is like in order, and I think it goes along with what we're saying in terms of keeping an open mind, especially if we're trying to 10x something is easier than 2x. He says that like if you're gonna get to where you have to do something that 99% of people aren't doing. And kind of the vein of the argument is if you're going to come up with an invention or something, you have to be like a contrarian. Like you have to come up with an idea that's contrarian at some point. So for Bill Gates, people told him it was crazy. Like, what's the point, in everybody having a computer that would cost way too much. It's this, it's that, and he did it. And then with Mark Zuckerberg, it's, people don't care about meeting online and sharing pictures. Like here's my photo album, like you take a look when you're at my house, right? Or whatever, is somewhat contrarian. So I think that's important to keep in mind too. If you're looking to to change your identity, change your beliefs, keep an open mind, sometimes it's healthy to be a contrarian.
Yeah.
If everybody's going this way and it doesn't feel right for you, it's always okay to go, is there a different way for me to accomplish my goals in whatever you're trying to do?
Well, and I wanna reel this in just a little bit, because if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, okay, I'm working as hard as I can. I want more than I got. I'm willing to change my beliefs. I'm willing to take inventory of my beliefs and challenge my beliefs, be open minded, and potentially admitting like some of these things I believe are fundamentally wrong. Um,
Hmm.
if you're sitting there listening to that, but you're like, now how the heck do I come up with the next invention as big as like the home computer or as big as Facebook?
Yeah.
I I want to challenge you, and again, just go read the book 10x is easier than 2x, because this is from the book as well.
Hmm.
But you have already had 10x moments in your life.
Hmm.
You have already had them, and I think it's important to even take inventory of those 10x moments in your life. One of the examples that he gives in the book is that every single person that is walking went from being stationary, immobile, to crawling to walking. And if you
Hmm.
can go from crawling to walking, that is a 10x move. You could get
Hmm.
further faster than you ever thought. And if
Hmm.
you went from walking to driving, that is a 10x move,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
If you went from not being able to read to being able to read, write, and do math, that's a
Hmm.
10x evolution that occurred in your life. The point that I'm trying to make here is not only do you have it in you to create 10x moments, it's not all like you have it in you, but you've already done it. Like you've
Yeah.
already done these 10x things in your life. So you need to go in, like, again, going back to that identity, who
Hmm.
I am. I'm a person that doesn't settle for 2x. I don't even accept that as a reality, because you can't work, again, 99.9% of people, I believe, especially people living listening to this, you
Hmm.
cannot afford, you will not be able to work twice as hard to double
Yeah.
your income, right? So if we're talking about raising the standard of our financial well-being, if we're talking about creating wealth, there has to be 10x moments in our life, not just until we reach college graduation, but afterwards. We have to continue to challenge ourselves and evolve. That goes back to say, okay, what am I believing right now that is just
Hmm.
actually 100% lie? I guarantee you, one of the things I would love to challenge people on is this notion of working 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you are not going to, like, if you're believing that that is the only way. I'm not saying that that isn't a way. What
Hmm.
I'm saying is that is not the only way, right? And maybe if you're working 40 hours, you're like, "Well, I can't work 80 hours." No, you can't work 80 hours. Your
Yeah.
employer probably wouldn't even let you work 80 hours. But if they
But on the
did,
other side, on the other side of the coin, if you're only working 20 hours, maybe the first right step is to work 40 hours, you know?
but
So
again, I don't
it's
even think
never out of
that's
the question.
you need to be careful there, because that is not necessarily a truth that we need to give people,
I
right?
know.
What we can say is, when you have space on your calendar, there's unlimited ways in 2024 to make money.
Oh
There's
yeah.
Let me back that up. There's unlimited ways in 2024 to legally and ethically make money,
That's an
right?
important distinction. Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that, like, if I'm making $80,000 a year, how much money is out there for me if I were to write a book, start a podcast, do all these things that people are completely capable of doing?
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it
Hmm.
doesn't like to make $1 million off of a podcast or a book or creating a brand or whatever the case. It doesn't necessarily take another 40-hour week
Yeah.
role, right? So there's, like, I don't
Maybe.
care how much or how little. I'm just saying, and again, that's true, maybe, but we have to discover our own truth, and we have to say, okay, what am I doing right now just because I thought this was the only way?
Yeah.
And at least start asking the questions.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think when we start to understand the idea that once we establish our beliefs and we start going the distance, the next the we'll wrap up with this thought is, it's not 99% of success stories are not overnight success stories,
Yeah.
right? Um, there was, I saw like another funny quote that I'm going to completely butcher again, but it was something to the effect of, um, I was an overnight like I was an overnight success, and I started working on it 15 years ago.
Yeah. It only took me 30 years to be an overnight success. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Better said. Well done, Bill. Um, but
Why I'm here.
inside of that, we talk about delayed gratification, and sometimes we get frustrated because when we have these new beliefs and we put them to the test, they don't work right away all the time. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you did it wrong. It doesn't mean, now, it can, but it doesn't have to mean that. We have to get better at measuring success. We talk about it all the time: micro action,
Hmm.
micro progress,
Yeah.
micro progress,
Sure.
right? So that's important, um, to know. Like, just because I've changed something in my belief doesn't mean tomorrow I'm going to be a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
It just means that now my capacity is up here, and I need to figure out how to continue to fill that potential space with my effort, my energy, my output.
Yeah. I think, yeah, my thoughts are, in this light, it's, you got to change your mindset and change your thoughts, change where you think you can go. And then try and assume the identity of somebody who's going in that direction, whatever it is. And then start taking the micro actions to reach that goal or go to where you want to go. And then your beliefs will form after that once you have a track record of making progress towards that goal.
Love it. I think, at the end of the day, my job is to grow wealth for people. My
Hmm.
job is to challenge and change beliefs and replace their beliefs with healthier beliefs. My
Hmm.
job is to keep them from making mistakes and to hopefully mitigate, reduce, or even you can't eliminate, but mitigate or reduce anxiety for people.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I I'm I'll wrap up with this story. I had a client who has a potential client who had I was meeting with him, significant sum of money, more money than probably anybody listening to this podcast to have. Um, in part of the conversation, we were talking about estate laws and death tax and all this
Hmm.
stuff, and what we needed to start doing to get his assets to the next generation, his children, so that the government doesn't take at least half of it.
Right.
And his response to that was, and I don't remember the exact words, but basically, I don't care about that because I don't need my children to become spoiled little trust fund babies.
Yeah.
Now, we all have heard something to that effect before.
Yeah.
But I stuck my neck out. He wasn't super thrilled with my response.
All right.
But my response to him was, your children could potentially become trust fund babies. And he was like, well, yeah, if they have all this money sitting there somewhere, they're bound to become spoiled trust fund babies. And I just simply asked him kindly, politely, whose fault would that be?
Oh no.
Whose fault would that be?
Oh man.
But he didn't love it. He didn't love it. But the
I love how you said a client and then you went a potential client.
potential.
So that's
So
story.
wait, so the verdict's still out. The point, though, and
Hey,
the
I
ultimate point of
mean,
me saying this to him was just because we think what we've seen happen before, there's evidence that it's true. If you have a child that inherits tens of millions of dollars, they're bound to be spoiled little brats, trust fund babies, whatever we want to call them. But just because we've seen that or heard stories about that, as a dad, he has the ability on the front end to influence the values of his children. He
Yeah.
could actually say, I don't believe in that outcome. I don't believe that outcome has to be true. And if I do things here and now on the front end, not only can I pass on every penny of my wealth to the next generation, but they're going to be such values based family members that my belief is they'll never touch that money, and even more money will go to the next generation. And not only that, but they will become intentional about putting their values into their children as well. And this can be perpetuated for generation after generation after generation. That
Yeah.
could have been his belief. That was
Sure.
what I was trying to get at. And we did have
Yeah.
more conversation. He didn't leave angry, but he understood what I was saying at the end. Um, but I would just challenge for every person out there struggling, for every person out there, and not even struggling. Some people might be struggling, but some people also just might be tired. And I'm like, man, I just always feel like I have to work a little bit harder to connect the dots. Inflation and this and that, and things are expensive, and the world moves faster, and I'm losing time. I want time with my children, not spend that work. Like all these things are frustrating. Don't just like stop just trying to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
Because you'll never catch up.
Yeah.
Start with identity, knowing who you are. I am. Challenge your beliefs. Figure out what beliefs you have that are keeping your capacity where your effort is now. That you like the simple belief change that can expand your capacity. Now you have potential. Work on that. That's where you need to be. Stop working twice as hard. Start challenging your beliefs.
Listen to the people who say you can do it.
You can do it.
Except like, jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. Don't listen to that guy. Right.
Don't listen to that guy. All right.
But
Bill, you got anything else?
no, man, I'm good to go. I
Hey,
think
we
that was a
appreciate
really
you
good
guys.
episode. That was an awesome conversation. I
Was
hope
it?
a
I
lot of
appreciate
people
you having
found value in that
Yeah, I appreciate you having that with me.
because
It's
I
something I'm
really
passionate
did.
about.
I felt my brain expand exponentially. Some
Oh,
might
that's
even say 10x.
10x. We just 10x
Yeah.
Bill's brain.
Let's
I
go,
love it.
baby.
Your potential is more now than it has ever been.
It's
Guys,
true.
this is something, just a plug real quick. It's not out. Probably won't be out for a while, but the book that I'm writing is coming along. Hopefully sometime around the end of this year, pending my terrible writing skills and a lot of editing. So you can actually read what I wrote. But a lot of what I'm talking about here is going to be in that book. If you do follow us on our socials, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, Harpeth Wealth Partners, the Brandan Chasteen, you can go to harpethwealthpartners.com. just connect with us, because we're putting out a lot of stuff that can just trigger these kind of things. How do we challenge beliefs? How do we challenge beliefs? Because that's what I can do. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm just going to challenge some thoughts that you have, make you think about it more occasionally. And that's the beautiful part about Money Therapy, the podcast, and on
Mhm.
YouTube, is if you subscribe, please like, if you share us with people. We're just trying to challenge the way people think versus the way we think people could be thinking, because just that little shift might bring about tremendous success for you. Bill,
Yeah, everyone's trying to get better together. So join us.
join us. All right,
Join us
guys,
now.
appreciate you. We'll talk very soon.
Adios, everybody.
We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.